The old radio hummed to life at precisely 2:17 a.m., its cracked dial glowing faintly in the attic's gloom. Dust motes swirled as the static cleared, and a child's voice, soft, deliberate, whispered, "Eleanor!" My name, unmistakable, curled through the air like smoke. Then the countdown began, 10, 9, 8. Each number was slower, colder, as if testing my nerve. I froze, clutching the broom I'd been using to sweep decades of cobwebs. The farmhouse, creaking under the weight of its own secrets, offered no answers. Last night it reached 1. The voice paused, then giggled, a sound that wasn't a child's at all, but something older wrong. The radio went silent, but the attic door slammed shut. I haven't touched the radio since, but it's 2:15 a.m. now, and I hear static crackling upstairs. What do I do? The static from the attic grew louder, a jagged hum that seemed to claw at the silence of the farmhouse. It was 2:16 a.m., and the air felt thick, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stood at the foot of the attic stairs, my hand trembling on the splintered banister. The radio's glow flickered through the cracks of the attic door, casting jagged shadows on the wall. Part of me screamed to run, to grab my keys and tear down the dirt road until the farmhouse was a speck in the rearview. But another part, maybe the part that remembered Grandpa's stories of this place, of things that linger where they shouldn't, urged me to climb those stairs. I took a step, then another, the wood groaning under my weight. The air grew colder with each step, and by the time I reached the attic door, my breath was fogging in front of me. The radio's static sharpened into that same child's voice, clear as a bell. "Eleanor!" My skin prickled. 7, 6, 5. The countdown again, but faster now, impatient. I pushed the door open. The radio sat in the center of the attic, its dust-covered shell vibrating faintly as if it were alive. The dial was stuck on 93.7, a frequency that shouldn't exist out here, too far from any station. The voice continued, 4, 3. I lunged forward, yanking the plug from the wall. The static cut out, but the voice didn't. 2. It was coming from the radio itself, unpowered, impossible. I stumbled back, knocking over a crate of Grandpa's old journals. One spilled open, revealing his spidery handwriting. "The voice knows your name, don't answer it." 1. The attic went silent. Then a creak behind me, not the house settling, but deliberate, like footsteps on bone-dry wood. I spun around, nothing. Just boxes, shadows, and the radio, its dial now spinning slowly on its own. The child's giggle filled the room again, not from the radio, but from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air itself. "Eleanor, you're late," it whispered, no longer a child, but something layered, ancient, mocking. I grabbed a hammer from a nearby toolbox, my heart hammering louder than the static had. "Destroy the radio? Run. Or God help me answer the voice." Grandpa's journal was clear, but he'd also written, "It wants something, always has." The radio's dial stopped spinning, landing on 93.7 again. The attic door creaked, inching open, though no one stood there. 2:18 a.m. The countdown was over, but the game, whatever it was, had just begun. Grip tightened on the hammer, its cold weight grounding me as the attic seemed to pulse with the echo of that final giggle. The open journal at my feet stared up, Grandpa's warning screaming in my head, "Don't answer it." But the voice, now slithering through the air like a breeze no window could explain, wasn't just calling my name, it was waiting. The radio's dial twitched, a slow tick-tick-tick like a clock winding backward. The attic door, still ajar, swayed slightly as if nudged by an unseen hand. 2:19 a.m., I had to decide. I dropped to my knees, shoving the hammer aside, and pulled the journal closer. The pages were brittle, yellowed, smelling of mildew and time. Grandpa's words were frantic, scrawled in uneven lines. "It came in 47, after the fire. It knows what we took." My heart sank. Fire? Took what? I flipped through, scanning for answers. Another entry dated decades ago. "The girl's voice isn't a girl, it's the land. It wants the stone back. Buried it under the oak, but it still finds me." My eyes darted to the attic window. Outside, barely visible in the moonlight, stood the gnarled oak at the edge of the property, its branches clawing at the sky. The radio crackled again, unplugged but alive. "Eleanor," the voice hissed, now layered with a low growl, "you can't hide it forever." My name felt like a hook in my chest, pulling me towards something I didn't understand. The stone? What stone? Grandpa never mentioned anything like that, only his ghost stories about the land being wrong after the war. I grabbed another journal, flipping to a sketch. A rough drawing of a smooth, fist-sized rock, etched with symbols that made my eyes ache to look at. Below it in red ink, "Never dig it up, never." The attic floor creaked again, closer this time. I spun, hammer back in hand, but the shadows stayed empty. The air was colder now, sharp enough to sting my lungs. The voice came again, not from the radio, but from the floorboards beneath me. "Give it back!" My stomach lurched. The oak, the stone. Whatever Grandpa had done, whatever he'd hidden, it was tied to this thing. I glanced at the radio, its dial spinning faster now, the static rising into a scream that wasn't sound but feeling, anger, hunger, ancient and endless. I could smash the radio, end the conduit, but would that stop it? I could run to the oak, dig for this stone, but what if that's what it wanted? Or I could answer, ask what it was, what it needed. Grandpa's warning burned in my mind, but so did his last words to me years ago. "The house keeps its debts, Ellie, don't let it collect." The attic door slammed shut, hard enough to rattle the walls. The radio went silent, but the floor vibrated faintly like a heartbeat under the wood. 2:20 a.m. Something was coming. The attic's heartbeat pulsed beneath my feet, a slow, deliberate thrum that matched the pounding in my chest. The hammer felt useless in my hand, too small against the weight of whatever was stirring. The radio sat silent, its dial frozen on 93.7, but the air crackled with expectation, like the moment before a storm breaks. Grandpa's journal lay open, the sketch of the stone staring up at me, its strange symbols seeming to shift in the dim light. "Never dig it up." His words were a warning, but the voice, now silent yet somehow louder in its absence, felt like a command. 2:21 a.m., the farmhouse groaned as if leaning in to listen. I couldn't stay here, trapped with that thing's whispers. Smashing the radio might buy time, but it wouldn't explain the stone, the fire, or why Grandpa buried something under the oak. I needed answers. I grabbed the journal, tucking it under my arm, and bolted for the attic door. It didn't budge. I shoved harder, the wood unyielding, as if sealed by something other than rust or age. The heartbeat in the floor quickened. "Eleanor," the voice whispered, not from the radio but from the walls, the ceiling, the very air. "You know where it is." The words slithered into my skull, cold and heavy, like they were carving themselves into my thoughts. I stumbled back, tripping over a crate, and the journal fell open to a new page. There in Grandpa's shaky hand, "The stone holds it down. Fire woke it. Taking it was my sin, but returning it is worse. It'll take more than you give." Below, a single line underlined so hard the pen had torn the paper. "It's not a child, it's the hollow." The hollow. The word hit like a punch. Grandpa used to talk about the land here, how the old-timers called it hollow, not empty, but hungry. A place where crops failed, animals vanished, and people who stayed too long started hearing things. I thought it was just rural superstition, but now with the attic door sealed and the floor pulsing, it felt real. Too real. The window. I rushed to it, fumbling with the latch. The oak loomed outside, its branches swaying without wind. If the stone was there, maybe I could find it, understand it. But Grandpa's warning, returning it is worse, clawed at me. What was worse than this? The voice answered, as if reading my thoughts. "Dig, Eleanor. Or I'll dig for you." The floorboards creaked, splitting slightly, and a faint, acrid smell like ash and rot seeped up. I had seconds to decide. The hammer could break the window, get me to the oak. The journals might hold more clues, but time was slipping. Or I could answer the voice, demand what the hollow wanted, though every instinct screamed against it. The radio's dial twitched again, unplugged but alive, and the heartbeat in the floor grew louder, faster, as if something was rising. 2:22 a.m. The attic felt smaller, the walls closer, the air thicker with that ashy stench. Attic was suffocating, the air heavy with that ashandrot stench, pressing against my skin like damp cloth. The floor's heartbeat thudded faster, each pulse vibrating up my legs, urging me to move. The journal's words burned in my mind. "Returning it is worse." But the voice, the hollow, knew my name, knew my fear, and it wasn't asking. It was demanding. The radio's dial spun wildly now, a blur of numbers, though no sound came. The attic door stayed sealed, the window my only way out. 2:23 a.m., I had to act. I gripped the hammer and swung at the window's latch. The glass shattered outward, shards glinting in the moonlight as they fell. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the faint smell of earth and something sharper like charred wood. The oak stood maybe 50 yards away, its twisted branches clawing at the sky, beckoning. I climbed onto the sill, ignoring the jagged edges catching at my sleeves, and dropped to the roof below. The journal was still tucked under my arm, its weight a reminder of Grandpa's warnings. The farmhouse loomed behind me as I slid down the roof's edge, landing hard in the overgrown yard. The oak was closer now, its trunk gnarled and black like it had drunk in the fire Grandpa wrote about. The voice came again, not from the house but from the ground itself, a low murmur vibrating through my boots. "Dig, Eleanor." My name felt like a chain, tightening. I stumbled toward the tree, the hammer in one hand, the journal in the other, my breath ragged. The moon was high, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe at the edges of my vision. At the base of the oak, the earth was uneven, sunken, as if something had been disturbed long ago. I dropped to my knees, clawing at the dirt with the hammer's claw end. It was loose, too loose, like it had been waiting. My fingers hit something hard, a smooth, cold surface. The stone. It was heavier than it looked, about the size of a heart, etched with those same aching symbols from Grandpa's sketch. As I pulled it free, the ground trembled and the voice laughed, a sound that was childlike one moment, then deep and guttural the next. "Good," it said. "Now give it back." I froze, the stone heavy in my hands. Grandpa's words screamed. "It'll take more than you give." The air around the oak thickened, the shadows coiling tighter, and I swear I saw them move, shapes that weren't branches, weren't human, circling the tree. The farmhouse behind me groaned, its windows flickering with that same eerie glow from the radio. The hollow wasn't just in the stone. It was the land, the air, maybe even me now. I could bury the stone again, run with it, or God help me, offer it to whatever was watching. The ground pulsed again, stronger, and the stone grew warm, almost burning. The voice whispered, closer now, right behind my ear. "Choose, Elena, or I will." 2:24 a.m. The shadows tightened their circle, the stone burned in my hands, its heat pulsing in time with the ground's heartbeat, a rhythm that seemed to sync with my own frantic pulse. The shadows around the oak writhed, no longer just tricks of moonlight but shapes, tall, thin, with limbs that bent wrong, their edges blurring into the night. The voice, the hollow, was everywhere now, a chorus of whispers curling around me like smoke. "Give it, Elena, give it!" My name was a weight, dragging me toward the earth. The farmhouse's glow pulsed brighter, its windows like eyes watching, waiting. 2:25 a.m. The air was thick with ash and rot, and the stone felt alive, its symbols glowing faintly, searing my palms. Grandpa's warning echoed, "It'll take more than you give." Burying the stone again might trap it, but for how long? Running with it could buy time, but where to? And offering it to the hollow, what would it take in return? Me? Something worse. The journal, still clutched under my arm, was my only tether to answers. I dropped to my knees, the stone thudding into the dirt, and flipped open the pages, my hands shaking so badly I tore the paper. There, in Grandpa's frantic scrawl, "The hollow isn't one thing, it's the dead of this land. Fire woke it, blood fed it, the stone binds it. Giving it back opens the door, don't let it through." The shadows lunged closer, their forms sharpening, faces now eyeless but grinning, mouths moving with the voice. "Now, Elena." The ground split beneath the oak, a thin crack snaking toward me, oozing that same ashy stench. The stone pulsed, its glow brighter, and I felt it tug, like it wanted to leap from my hands into the crack. The hollow wasn't just in the land, it was the land, hungry, endless, and I dug up its leash. I staggered back, clutching the stone, its heat now unbearable. Bury it? The crack in the ground widened, hungry. Run. The shadows were circling tighter, their whispers turning to hisses. Offer it. The journal's last line burned in my mind. "It took Mary in 47. It'll take you too." Mary, Grandpa's sister, the one he never talked about, who disappeared after the fire. The fire, he said, woke it. My eyes darted to the farmhouse, its glow now a sickly red like embers. The shadows pressed closer, their hands, not hands, but claws reaching. I made my choice. I hurled the stone into the crack, praying Grandpa was wrong, that burying it deeper would end this. The ground shuddered, swallowing the stone, and the crack sealed with a sound like a scream. The shadows froze, their grins fading, but the voice didn't stop. It laughed, low and guttural, from the oak, the house, the sky. "You opened the door, Elena." The farmhouse's glow flared, and something moved inside. A silhouette, small, childlike, but wrong, its head tilting at an impossible angle. The ground was still now, but the air was heavier, the shadows dissolving but not gone. The journal slipped from my hands, open to a final, smudged note. "If you give it the stone, it takes you instead." 2:26 a.m. The farmhouse door creaked open, and the child's silhouette stepped out, its voice calling my name. The child's silhouette stood in the farmhouse doorway, its head cocked at that unnatural angle, my name dripping from its lips like venom. "Elena." The voice was no longer just the hollow's. It was layered with others, voices I half recognized, Grandpa's, maybe Mary's, and something older, guttural, that made my bones ache. The farmhouse's red glow pulsed behind it, the air thick with ash and rot, the oak's branches creaking though no wind stirred. The journal lay in the dirt, its final warning screaming. "It takes you instead." I'd given the stone back, thinking I could bury the hollow's hunger, but I'd only fed it. 2:27 a.m. The silhouette took a step forward, its shape flickering, not quite solid, not quite real. Running felt pointless. The hollow was the land itself, and where could I go that it wouldn't follow? The journals might hold more, but the silhouette was closer now, its form stretching, growing taller, its eyeless face splitting into a grin. My hands shook as I backed toward the oak, the hammer still in my grip, useless but heavy. The voice came again from the silhouette, the ground, the house. "You're mine now, Alina." The words weren't a threat, they were a claim. I stumbled over the journal, its pages fluttering open to a sketch I hadn't seen. A circle of symbols around the oak with a note in Grandpa's hand. "Blood seals it. Mary's did. Mine couldn't." My stomach twisted. The fire in 47, Mary's disappearance, the stone, it wasn't just a binding, it was a sacrifice. The hollow didn't want the stone, it wanted me. The silhouette was 10 feet away now, its form shifting, child, woman, shadow, all at once. The ground beneath the oak cracked again, a low rumble shaking the earth, and I felt it, a pull like the land was inhaling. I had one chance. I dropped the hammer and grabbed the journal, tearing out the page with the symbols. Blood seals it. I didn't have time to think. I sliced my palm on a jagged root, wincing as blood welled, and smeared it across the symbols, chanting them under my breath, gibberish, but they burned on my tongue. The silhouette froze, its grin faltering. The ground's rumble stopped, and the farmhouse's glow dimmed. "No," the voice hissed, splintering into 1,000 whispers. "Not yours to close." I pressed the bloody page into the oak's bark, where the crack had reopened. The tree shuddered, the air screamed, and the silhouette lunged, then dissolved, collapsing into ash that scattered into the night. The farmhouse went dark, the heartbeat in the ground silenced. I fell to my knees, gasping, my hand throbbing. The journal lay beside me, its pages blank now, as if the hollow had erased itself. But as I staggered to my feet, the oak's branches creaked, and a faint whisper brushed my ear. "I'll wait, Alina." The farmhouse stood silent, the land still. 2:28 a.m. I walked away, not looking back, knowing the hollow wasn't gone, just quiet, for now.